Welcome to the Immergence Show, dear community. I'm your host, Nico Farah, and today we're incredibly fortunate to dive into a conversation that will redefine your relationship with technology and your own digital future. We're joined by a true pioneer, Doc Searls, co-author of the Cluetrain Manifesto and the author of The Intention Economy. Doc is here to share this groundbreaking vision, challenging the status quo by empowering us to set our own digital rules with my terms and introducing the vital concept of a personal AI, an AI guardian built to serve only you. We'll explore how the intention economy evolves with AI, the revolutionary My Terms framework, and the critical vision of your personal AI. This is about reclaiming digital autonomy, and we want your questions and thoughts throughout the discussion. So drop them in the chat. Doc, thank you for being here. Let's get started.
Thank you, Nico. This is great. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you for being here. I've been waiting for this conversation. You have been such an inspiration to organizations like Why. And, we would love to hear your personal and professional journey, a little bit about, aha moments, learnings from your very complex and, exciting journey that you've had to get you to this point that you are making a lot of impact.
Well, thank you. So where do you want to start?
Well, yeah, tell us about, how you got started, maybe in tech, and then, how you got to this place. I think it would be very inspiring for people to hear this story.
Well, it's I actually my background is all over the place. I'm a lifelong journalist, but I'm also a veteran broadcaster. I worked in broadcasting. I worked for newspapers and magazines, and I worked in like many journalists who can't get any work or can't get paid enough. I co-founded an advertising agency that for a while was the top ad tech agency, and not ad tech, but advertising agency in Silicon Valley. That was in the 80s and the early 90s. But the important thing, I think, was that I saw in the 80s, in the late 80s, that TCP/IP, the basic, the fundamental protocol of the internet, among all the protocols that were out there at the time, was going to change everything. I saw that not only did we now have digital technology, which is radically going to change everything already anyway, but having an emerging network that put everybody on Earth at zero distance from everybody else at no cost, with a peer-to-peer protocol that made all of us peers on that network, had just profound implications. And you could just see it beginning in the 80s. I couldn't get on it until the mid-90s when ISPs first came along. But once that happened, that became kind of not so much a cause for me, but it became an area of study that just has consumed me ever since. Now, in '94, a guy named Phil Hughes approached me with an idea for a new magazine that was going to be based on free software, but he quickly made it Linux Journal. I became an editor for Linux Journal in '96, though I was close to Phil during the 2 years before that, and stayed on his masthead finally as editor-in-chief until 2019 when it got acquired. It's still online, but the whole staff got fired, but we did our job. So I was there for 24 years helping the world talk about open source, and open source became a cause for me as well. So between seeing the internet come along, having profound implications for everything, and then, helping the world talk about open source is a big part of that too. So, and I also saw business changing. I saw customers having a larger role in business. That's what Cluetrain was about. Cluetrain was basically a radical statement by customers to markets, saying, among other things, that markets are conversations, hyperlinks subvert hierarchy. We could do better than advertising for communicating with each other, a bunch of other things. So I don't know. That's not a great background, but it's probably close enough.
Well, I appreciate you. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, the 24 years that you've been writing and editing for Linux Journal, I'm sure there's a lot that goes into that as well. And I encourage people to check out your blog afterwards. That's very insightful as well. But we will be sharing the links and everything in the chat later. And I want to take a moment and say hi to our amazing audience. Thank you for being live with us, Zach, Jane, Try, Felipe, and everyone else who's tuning in. We appreciate you being here, or anyone who is going to watch the recording. Cool. So let's talk about the intention economy. Your book, has been such an inspiration for many. And I think it would be great for you to share a little bit for those who are not that familiar. What is the core premise of that? And, especially how it relates to the day and age that we are in now.
Yeah. So, as I said, I saw with the internet that because it's a peer-to-peer system, I thought, wow, the wonderful thing about this is that customers can have far more power and far more choice. Not just I have a much bigger choice of things to buy, but
Mm-hmm.
I should have a far greater range of ways that I can contribute to the marketplace that go beyond my money and my attention. And this there was a lot of talk in the 90s, especially about the attention economy. That was all about attention now. In fact, we're still in that era
Yep.
where is it, I don't know, a $2 trillion business in advertising online that wants to get more and more personal, where there's, especially using AI, we're gonna guess better than ever what you're all about, and we'll know everything about you, and isn't it wonderful, and we'll surveil the living crap out of everybody, and is it going to be great, and I thought that so there was a wonderful book by uh, Eli Pariser called "The Filter Bubble" that was about that. Came out in 2011, and he said all of that was based on a bad theory of you. That
Mm-hmm.
one part of the theory is that you're buying something all the time. Another is that you're subject to influence by advertising at all times, and you could be guessed at, and most of us can't really be guessed at even by ourselves. First, we're not buying something all the time. We're not. You and I aren't buying anything right now. We buy something a very small part of the time, but we're having experiences with products on a constant basis. Here's some sunglasses that I wear. They're wraparounds. They're nice. They're made by, I don't even know who they're made by, but it would be interesting to know. I'd like a relationship with them to tell them their lenses fall out too easily. I have some Lamo shoes, Lamo, that I really love, but the soles tend to fall off. I'd like a relationship with them where I could give them my experience with those products that I would buy more of if I could have a better relationship with them. But the main thing was that what's obvious in the physical world, in the analog world, when you go to a, a marketplace, like a farmer's market on the weekend or something like that, is that you're a free customer. You have all kinds of choice. You can have relationships with any one of these people. There's um, as a free customer, you're more valuable than a captive one. You're not captive to the person selling corn or the person selling bread or the person selling coffee beans or whatever else it is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, you could participate a lot more. You come back and say, that batch of coffee last week wasn't great. But I think the ones you had over here, I like that more. I like the Sumatra better than the Brazilian. I don't know. I'm just making this up, but we don't have that online. We don't have that in the digital world, and we should. The theory in the digital world, and they're actually a theory that's been around in business for probably over 100 years, is that a captive customer is more valuable than a uh, than a free one. And my theory is that a free customer is more valuable than a captive one. It isn't a radical idea, except that in the norms of business as usual. If you listen to the way marketing speaks, you and I are targets to be acquired and managed and controlled and locked in. This is the language of marketing, and it's also the language of animal husbandry and slavery. And we need to break out of that. And so the intention economy was about that. How do we break out of that? And had a bunch of ideas for that. But the idea is that at the end of this, we become dancers in the marketplace rather than um, fish in a barrel that gets shot with messages.
Interesting. So you don't think like the reviews that we can write online will be that relationship giving feedback?
That's not a relationship. There's just it's just saying stuff, and often it comes from, and reviews aren't good enough. For example, all right, okay, right now, if you buy a car, or if you buy a new TV, that thing is spying on you. Your car comes with a cell phone that you can't see, you have no control over, and is reporting to Toyota or Ford or Volvo or whoever it is where you're going and what you're doing. There's some that even know if you're having sex in the car. Okay. This stuff is coming with your car, and you get a big fat sheaf of paper where you can't read all of it, and you sign off a bunch of stuff that says Toyota or whoever has the right to spy on you. That comes with the car. Your phone has a lot of this stuff too. Now, here's the interesting thing. You can do far more with that information than they can. They're busy selling it to advertisers, but more importantly, really with the car, to insurance companies. But right now, if your TV knows everything that you've watched, wouldn't you like to have that information? We'd like to know, did I watch all the way through Game of Thrones? What was that on? Was that on Netflix or HBO or what? I don't remember where it was. It'd be great if you had that information and it was a form that you could actually make use of. And you would, one of the big things with Netflix and all of them is like, and some Samsung, we have a new Samsung TV that does this. Here's what's for you, right? And it'll say for you. And then they make a bunch of guesses about what you might want. Some of that might be helpful, but it'd be great if you had much better feedback than what you have right now, which is they're just watching you. And there's nothing more that you could do besides being watched. We actually quit Netflix, by the way, a while back, and HBO as well, because suddenly it thought I was Spanish. And I actually had a long conversation with Netflix about this, where I said, can you get it to stop thinking I'm Spanish? And they actually said, no, we can't. It's broken. It was actually broken. We had to quit the whole thing and start over again. But my point with this is that the assumption on the part of business, as usual, is that the more we know about you, the better off you'll be. And my answer to that is the more we know about ourselves and the more we know about our relationship with you, the better off both of us are. And we can do far more interesting stuff than we can now under your broken system that nobody's busy challenging other than me and a small cabal of like-minded people.
Well, thank you for sharing. And it's interesting that you mentioned giving us the data in a way that we can actually use it, because a lot of times you can go to these platforms and they give you the option to download your data, but it's not something we can use it.
It's a terrible form. It's just here's a giant table of, not even a table. Here's just a pile of comma separated or tab separated values that you could drop into a spreadsheet. It's terrible. And I mean, but the thing is that nobody's thinking on our side, like, okay, great, I'll take that and ingest it. Obviously, a personal AI that has some not just intelligence, just some capability to take that and put it together with your calendar, with your contacts, with other data that you already have, your property, your travels, your travel plans, where you've been, what your schedules were. All of that stuff comprises our lives, and they're out of control right now. We don't have good enough control of it. Apple, Google's, and Microsoft's calendars are not very good. Their contact management is not very good. Our social networks should not be inside of Facebook or inside of LinkedIn or any of these. They should be in our contacts. Why don't we make those more social? There's an idea about that we'll talk about later, but
awesome. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Let's say hi to our amazing audience. There is already comments here as well. Brian, Don, Ian, Rocio, Cam, JK, and everyone else who's tuning in. We're so grateful for you to be here. Feel free to share your comments about what we're discussing and ask questions, tag your friends to join us, and we will go on. And Brian says, studies have shown that AI is almost 10 times more persuasive than humans. And I'm sure just getting better. So protecting your personal data is so much more important. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. I mean, was persuasive the word there? Is 10 times more
Yeah.
persuasive.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so it could be a better sales thing, a salesperson, right? But we anthropomorphose everything. We can't help it, right? You know, it's the way we think and work because we're human beings. Um, I think that I mean I use AI every day. I'm on Claude. I pay ChatGPT. Um, I've used Copilot. I use Gemini. I use all of them to answer questions, to draw me a tree. I had that one done this morning. I wanted a certain kind of tree, and it helped a little bit with that. Although I think I'm already tired actually of AI art. I mean, you could tell it when you see it. It's got this look, um, and it's kind of fun to watch progress with that. For a long time, Dali, no, they couldn't get eyes right. Couldn't make eyes right. You know, it's just they were. And when they has eyes right now, good for that. But you know, we need AI that's for us. I mean, to me, right now we're stuck in 1975. I'm old enough so I remember this. In 1975, IBM ruled the world. There was this other group of mainframe maker wannabes called the Bunch for Burroughs, Univac, NCR, Control Data, and Honeywell. Those were plus IBM the world. The idea of a personal computer was like the idea for a personal skyscraper. It wasn't even thinkable. You know, finally, Steve Wozniak came along with the idea for what became the Apple One, and a few other, and there were enough ICs kicking around that you could say, oh, you can have a computer. It could do computing things on your desk, and maybe it could draw a few things. You could put some games on it. They talked about, but but the idea of a personal computer was oxymoronic. And 10 years later, we couldn't get along without them. I think we're in 1975 right now, where there are a few people who are thinking about personal AI, but nobody's really working on getting you the thing you need to pull your data together, to get your health, your contacts, your calendar, your subscriptions, kind of control your subscriptions. Oh my God, it'd be great to have an AI that looks out in the world and says, geez, you've got these 40 subscriptions to people on Substack that are, do you want to pay for that one and not for that one? And do you even know who these are? You have to go to Substack to see. But you're really, I'm actually thinking, because we got back on Netflix, we haven't watched it that much. We're paying $26 because I don't want to see the ads. To hell with it. I'd rather have a thing on my side that does this than on their side, and that starts collecting the data and actually publishing here. Hey, let's come up with a standard way we could say to hey Netflix, hey whatever it is in my car, whatever it is in my Google. Okay, Google Maps. Google Maps knows everywhere I've been that I've used that Google Maps. Apple Maps knows everywhere I've been that I've used their app. I'd like that data. Where was I? Who was I having lunch with last Thursday? How did I get there? There's so much data in our lives that is not in our control and should be. It's just, but we're not thinking about it because we think, oh, the big monster AI is going to take care of this stuff for us. No, it's not. It doesn't care about you at all. Okay, it's not there, and it's very, very, very early days right now with AI. So I think we can have it. It's just we need to put it together. And I hope a VC is listening, because none of them are investing in this. They're putting trillions of dollars, or want to be trillions of dollars, into the open AIs of the world. Put it into you and me. Let's have personal AI.
Thank you for that. We do have some questions and comments. Ron is saying, if individuals were to get all of our online behavior data, which can be quite a lot, do you think we have a capacity to process and get value from them?
Yeah, sure. Hi, Ron. Haven't seen you in a while. Yeah, absolutely. It's not that much data, really. When I travel in airplanes, I carry a little GPS with me. The reason I carry it with me is because my phone's not going to tell me this stuff. And by the way, the GPS to phone isn't good enough for that. And isn't it good enough? Because I've been told by an Apple guy, because it takes so much battery life. It'll work in your car, but not in a plane for that reason. Anyway, minor point. It's not that much data. The world is full of data. I've got 8 terabytes of data on this laptop I'm talking to you on, and another 8 or 9 laying over there in disconnected hard drives. A lot of that is useful data to me, but I have no way of pulling it together. But my point, though, is that, and to your point, and it's not just about our online behavior data. That's advertising think. Get out of that mentality. Our behavior is not the point. That's for rats and pigeons, okay, for behaviorist studies. It's our lives. What are we, and most of what we're doing is not online. It's driving, it's walking, it's talking to other people. Some of that we might want to monitor. For the most part, we don't. We just want to remember it. We just want to know, who is it we know, who's dead, who's living over here. What do we want to share about that? What don't we want to share? I'd love to know more about what happened to all the guys in my high school, which is, the high school is gone, the alumni thing is gone, all of it. I'm going to end up doing that work. I want to do that work. I think about half of them are dead at this point, but that tells you how old I am. But my point is, what is it that matters to us? It's not our online behavior. It's what's in our lives. I mean, over there are all my books. I'd like to take my phone and point it at those books. And I'm told this can be done, and look at the spines of those books and tell me not only what are they, make a little catalog out of them, pointed at my bookcases in other places. We also have one in California, one in New York. We're probably going to fold New York one, but put them all together. Which ones did I buy from Amazon? Which ones did I buy from something else? Which ones have I read or not read, or I'll take notes on? I don't know. But I mean, having knowledge of what I own, I think would be really helpful. I mean, think about your house. Okay, this is the most expensive thing you'll ever buy, right? How much data came with that house? It should be a lot, right? An awful lot of history. What does the city know about the house? What do the utilities know about the house? What do the construction people who worked on the house know about the house? None of that is available to you, and all of it should be. We should pull that together. That's not online. It's in our lives. Anyway, It's kind of off to the side, but go ahead.
I appreciate it. But I think the short answer to Ron is basically, it depends on our intention. Like, if we are looking for certain specific thing, this personal AI should be able to address those specific questions or concerns that we have and process that. So that's why we're going to rely on AI to help us with processing all of our data.
So this is for Ron. So think of the PC revolution. Okay, we never finished it. We moved on to our phones and onto apps. Personally, I finished as the PC revolution, where all of a sudden we had a thing in our lives that allowed us to do computing on stuff that mattered to us. We got word processors, so we could write letters, and we could do papers and other things. Biggest thing probably, spreadsheets, mapping programs, other things like that. We need to but it's kind of moved out. Now we have phones. We're looking at it over here. Let's finish. Personal AI is what goes on your PC. I think actually in the long run, here's an idea for Apple or Microsoft or Google. Make a device. Okay, it takes up a lot of memory and a lot of processing. Make a box that does that. Make a box that's the size of an Apple Mini, sits over here. It's our personal AI. It's got some graphics processors in it that are from NVIDIA or a competitor, and maybe mesh those in with a bunch of others. I don't know. That's an idea behind Quinet, which we could talk about in a bit. But there are lots of others working on a similar idea. But let us have the processing so we can do all this stuff. Shouldn't be that hard.
Thank you. And we have quite a few comments and questions. So let's get into them. Chuck says, Doc, you're right about contact management and messaging being separate. We need one integrated app for contacts where we email, send messages, listen to voice messages, arrange images for that contact. And what would be nice is if a contact app also manages and groups people naturally.
Yeah. So there's a product idea. We need that product idea. Okay.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be trapped inside of Apple or Google or Microsoft. Those are the places it's trapped right now. And all three of them are doing a shit poor job of making those things better. Email is an open based on open protocols, SMTP, POP3, and IMAP. They're fantastic. We've had them for a long time. But here I'm stuck inside LinkedIn and Facebook Messenger and a bunch of others like that. you go to Japan and everybody's using one thing. You go to um,
China,
China and they're using, WeChat or
WeChat,
whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, and you go elsewhere and it's WhatsApp. There are too many of them, and they're all too. I want to integrate those. Integrate those damn things for me, okay? And my calendar, and my contacts, and my history, whatever the history is. That's, and archives are. The longer I've been around journalism, the more I'm convinced that archives are like the key to making journalism work, because you need facts. We don't have the facts about our lives. The
Yeah.
journalism of our lives. Our lives are stories, like in journalism. And stories are based on struggle. What's the struggle? What's the problem here? Well, one problem we have right now is we have way too much information and no way to manage it. Really, we don't have a good way to manage. A good AI can help us with that. But if we stick our thinking inside of what's going on inside OpenAI and out there in the, where all the crap in the world has been gathered, and we have a 50 trillion point moving average of what a tree looks like. Well, wonderful to have that, but it's also, not that useful to us for our lives, our daily lives, whatever those are.
Thank you for sharing that. The next question from Felipe: if a one-person AI, or what you just described, becomes the trustworthy repository of all our memories and experiences, what happens if that AI system fails, is compromised, or the underlying technology becomes obsolete? How do we ensure long-term data integrity and accessibility?
Well, that's why we have replaceable parts. This is an important question, and it's, if that's all in your cloud. If you have a cloud, okay, and you're paying for the cloud, let's say you stick it all in AWS and then you stop paying Amazon, it's gone. It doesn't even leave a greasy spot. My wife is convinced of this, by the way, that in 500 or 1,000 years, we'll look back on this period in history as one about which nothing is known, because it's all in digital form and the digital form went away. There's a real risk of that. But that's why I wish I could turn the camera and show you. I have 20 hard drives laying over there. Probably a third of them are dead. Okay. But I keep replacing them and I keep scraping things off over there. But I don't have a way of managing all of it. I really should. There's a business in that, whatever that is. And AI can help with that enormously. I do photography. I have probably more photos in Wikipedia than anybody. I put none of them there. I have about 100,000 photos online, all licensed to encourage reuse. I shoot pictures out of airplanes, of towns and geological formations and other things, and I label them and I tag them and so forth, and then they show up in news stories. Okay. It would be great. What Apple does is that, there's no way to, these are memories, and we'll put music with that over there, and we're going to guess at what's a good photo, what's a bad photo. And it's slick and it's nice, but it's not a catalog. It's not something where I have full control over it, which is why I scrape all my photos that I shoot with a phone. I scrape them out of Appleville and I put them in my own directory, where I have my own way of naming them, which I do with Adobe Bridge, which is good, but not as good as several other better products that are dead and gone that I've used before and can't use anymore because Apple went to a 64-bit operating system and companies died off. But another way of looking at this, by the way, is, and this is one grace of aging, right? It is so early. The older I get, the earlier it seems. We're just at the beginning of a digital age that only started like 2 or 3 decades ago. And it's going to be with us for the next, few millennia if we survive. So that's a sideways way of answering that. But I think all of that stuff, we should have memory for it and processing for it. Simple as that. As substitutable, that we can swap that one out, put another one in, save that off in a form I can get at later. Oh, your audio's down. You're on mute, Nico.
Sorry. Brian mentioned we have to make sure that these personal spaces are leak-proof and people are working to solve these problems. He also mentioned it's important for these technologies to be open source and be managed by some company committed to the common good. It may require some new type of corporation, to be honest.
I think it's a great point. I mean, the closest thing we have to a company that actually respects our privacy and is trying to help us with that is Apple. But unfortunately, Apple is from ground to sky, vertically integrated and closed where it matters, and there's no substitute for it. And uh, this is a conundrum. I mean, this is something we've needed for a long time, and we don't have it yet, and we should have it. Um, in my time, I've said several times I'm using an Apple machine here. I'm not geeky enough to do Linux. And I was the business editor and ended up being the editor in chief. It was great covering business, but I know my way around a command line, but I can't compile my kernel. And that's the hard thing. If you're going all open source, I mean, right now, if I want to get on Quinet, which I do recommend people try to do, um, it's really geeky. I mean, it's not easy to do, and because you need geek help here. And so anyway, again, that's another point why it's early. Yes, we do need an entirely new kind of corporation for this. I think you can make money with it. I really do. Red Hat was that. It got eaten by IBM, and it's basically a enterprise server company and not a company for you and me.
Cool. Let's get into the agenda a bit, and then we come back to the questions and comments.
Sure.
I love how engaged our audience is. Thank you for everyone sharing
Yeah.
your thoughts and questions. So let's talk about customer comments. That is an organization that you have founded, I believe, and that's a infrastructure basically for many of the ideas you shared. If you can please share with us the origin of this, the primary mission of it, and how does it directly support the development and adoption of these tools to empower individuals?
Yeah. So the idea behind Customer Commons was that we need a place where terms that we proffer as first parties in agreements would live. And the idea behind that was, well, wait a minute, every new website you go to, and when we thought this up, this wasn't the case. Now it is the case. But everywhere you went was you always had to sign their terms. Here's a cookie notice, click accept or customize it. But your record of whatever you accepted or didn't accept or whatever customization you had, it's nowhere. You got a cookie, maybe, you don't know. OneTrust or Admiral or TrustArc or some company you never heard, you don't know about, that you can't contact, is keeping records of that. I mean, it's completely meaningless. It's kabuki theater. It's all pretend. It's not really. It's a broken system, but it's what we have, and it's stupid. But the idea behind this, we came back with this in the aughts. I mean, this is like 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, actually, that we should have our terms. Why don't the sites and services of the world agree to our terms, which might actually be friendly? You're on the airplane or you're in the airport, and you have to accept their terms, which basically say you're not going to download porn or abuse the privilege. Most terms that we accept at a base level are, I'm not going to hurt you and you're not going to hurt me. Sign here. Okay, that's basically what they say. Why don't we can have friendly terms? And we came up with one at Customer Commons. I'll explain it in a minute, but that says, go in and show me ads. Just make sure they're not based on tracking me from somewhere else. Okay, this is it. That's it. Sign here. You get to show me ads, and I get to know that I'm not being spied on by the whole world. That should be an agreeable term. So we wanted a place where these would live. And by we, I mean a bunch of people are involved in Project VRM, which I started at what was then a Berkman Center, is now the Berkman Klein Center at Harvard, where I was a fellow from 2006 to 2010, but I'm still involved with just as an alumnus. And I was obliged to start a project. So the project I started was this one, where the project was that, there's every company has a CRM system, a customer relationship management system. We should have a vendor relationship management system of our own, where we are in control of our relationships with all the companies we deal with, and that the companies with CRM systems should have a hand to shake on the customer side. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea behind that was just, let's just get a conversation going and a bunch of people agreeing on that, and then developing whatever. And so that's been going for since 2006. And our one spinoff is Customer Commons that happened in 2013. And it's based on Creative Commons, which also has DNA from the Berkman Center. And the idea behind that was there should be a place where as an artist, the licenses for your work could live. Okay, so all of my photographs are a Creative Commons license to require only attribution. That's my license for 100,000 photos or so. Okay, so I thought, why don't we have something like that for the terms that we have, where there's just a limited number of terms. They're all kind of standard form, and I'll say one like, for example, no stalking, which is an easy one to explain. It's not one we'll probably end up with, but it's easy to explain. And uh, and that would be just that place. But it could be a little more than that if we wanted to. We named it Customer Commons, basically like Creative Commons. We're customers. We have a commons. We have a place where our stuff, where terms that we might choose would live. And so that's why we started Customer Commons. Early on, we also had the idea that wouldn't it be great to have a worldwide association of all customers? So that's still an aspiration. It's my aspiration. I'm not sure anybody else ever shared it, but I think it's still a good idea. So if Customer Commons becomes gigantic, that will be what happened. But the main thing is that we need a place for the terms that we would proffer would live, or we could point to it on our side when we go to a website, or we engage with a company with an app or whatever, and say, here's my base term right over here. You look at it, you like it, your machine agrees to it, my machine agrees to it. We both keep an identical record. Here's a timestamp. We agreed to it. It was this one, and we both have it. And then later, if there's a dispute, we can both point to it and say that's what it was. And that, by the way, is why the IEEE approached us, Customer Commons, in 2017 and said, wouldn't it be great if you had a machine readable standard, a standard for the machine readability of those terms? And we said, sure. And that draft is now done, and it is in the final stages of approval at the IEEE and will probably become a working standard early next year. However, the standard is not so, it's really bone simple. It just says, the customer is the first party, the individual is the first party, the other side is the second party, the entity, we call it the entity. It could be a nonprofit, it could be a government, it could be another person. Most likely it's going to be a company or a website is the second party. And by the way, that's the exact reverse of what we have when we hit those consent mechanisms. They think of themselves as the first party. We reverse that. In a contract, there's always a first party to a second party. We become the first party. And but that's all it says. It just says, you're the first party, the other side's the second party. You point to a term, you either agree or you don't. And on your side, if they don't agree, you keep a record of that. Like, geez, I went to ABC Corp and they didn't agree to my term. Fine, I got a record that they didn't agree to it. That's fine. At least they had a mechanism that said it didn't agree. Right? And it's not more complicated than that. We don't specify a protocol. We don't specify anything else because we want the tech to be whatever anybody wants it to be.
Amazing. Thank you for sharing. That's very inspiring. And as Don mentioned, so many folks are already getting it started or getting motivated by it. So I'm curious, what are the most significant hurdles that you foresee for gaining widespread adoption of this? And, what is the long-term vision and how can people support implementing this?
Well, I don't think of them as hurdles. I think the world's a really big place and we can zigzag around a lot of things. I don't want or expect Google and Facebook to agree to any of this right away. They're not. And they're not who we're after. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of the world's websites are served by WordPress. We know Matt Mullenweg. He's a great guy. He likes us too, I'm sure. They would love this, I think. They would love for WordPress sites to have something on their side that says, and they don't even need to agree to this. It's an open source system. And not only that, WordPress is full of plugins. Write a plugin. Somebody could write a plugin that listens to my terms, right? We don't need their cooperation with that, but they're perfectly built for this. They're probably a good example of the kind of corporation that the audience member was asking about earlier, Philippe, I think it was. So, there's a huge percentage of all those WordPress websites that are not in the surveillance business, or if they are, they've got some pro forma thing that they've gotten from somewhere, and they've gone to Admiral or WordTrust and gotten some crap they can put on the front of their website, and you know they may not even have a lawyer. They just put that on there. They don't need it at all. We could throw away all of those. For all the websites that aren't making money on surveillance don't need a cookie notice anymore. Don't need it. All you have to do is accept my terms. Easy. you know yeah, just that's it. Not a complicated thing. So that if you look at hurdles, that's fairly low. If you look at a zigzag, we're going to go around Google and Facebook and all of the giants and everybody that's highly vested in surveillance capitalism, and go with everybody who's not necessarily in the surveillance economy. It's a very large bunch of people. So that's one thing. Another thing is that and studies have shown this over and over again. It goes back to Joseph Turo did a thing back in 2015 at Wharton that basically said people don't want to be followed. They just acquiesce to it. They put up with it. And saying they want that is I think an error. I think now I have a relative who has told me, as a young person, or told me indirectly, told my wife this, that, you know what, I kind of like it when Facebook or whatever it is comes up with something that I might like. And that's fine. We don't want to fight that. We don't want to fight the people. We don't want to fight the people who think that being spied on and giving up lots of personal data is actually a good thing because they get entertainment out of it. I do think that there's a much better system than that, where they can still be entertained without being followed like marked animals everywhere they go. There's probably a better way of doing many, many better ways of supply and demand in the marketplace getting along than that way. But anyway, I think sentiment is on our side. I think people don't like lost privacy. They don't like the surveillance economy as it stands. And we can speak to that appetite. One big problem is going to be getting money. Obviously, it is for all this kind of stuff. And there are a lot of people that are not so much people, but I think there are a lot of the status quo is going to feel threatened by this. Business as usual has been with us really since the industrial age, when freedom of contract was lost because companies realized that they needed standard form contracts to get agreements with lots and lots of different people. If you're General Electric and you're selling you a device, and they want to save themselves some liability for use of that device, they'll have you sign something and have all their customers sign the same thing. Those are called contracts of adhesion. Those were named by Friedrich Kessler, a law professor, in 1943 at the height of the industrial age, when industry was both causing and winning World War II. And he lamented the loss of freedom of contract. But the internet wasn't around in his lifetime. The internet is here now. We can have freedom of contract. So part of the case that I'm making is that, hey, let's bring back freedom of contract. Not hard to do. It's a peer-to-peer system out there, folks. We can all be peers in this thing, and we can do it. So, somebody give us the money to help. All we need right now is help in putting up the website, really. So
amazing. Thank you for sharing. And it's very important that you mentioned that a lot of folks are just choosing to go with it because it's more convenient, or that's all we are used to, or for a younger generation, is that all they know. And the important thing is to have an option, to have the option to have control. But a lot of times with these cookies and other things, is like, if you don't accept it, you don't get to see much, and you just don't get the benefit.
It's like we're so used to making nothing but Faustian bargains. We just assume that Faust won, or that I guess the devil won in that case. But it's to get the story right. But it's, I think people hit the big accept button. The accept button is bigger than the customize button, or make your choices, which aren't your choices. Go over here. We can do better than that. So let's do it.
Thank you. Just quickly reading a comment, Mo mentioned, appreciate your insights immensely. One thing that strikes me, especially as it intersects with the work of customer comments is that for current AI to truly serve us better, it demands richer context, but that often translates to a quiet trade-off, sacrificing privacy to get utility. It's as if helping AI helps us now require full voluntary exposure, something that feels at odds with the principles of agency and autonomy of the intention economy. Yeah, that's pretty
There's
much.
a lot there. A, a couple things. One is, and I heard you mention Ian. I don't know if Ian Henderson is on this or not, but he's been with two other people, the primary authors of the first set of terms we're going to put at Customer Commons, and are as examples are also in the annex of the standard itself. It's not part of the standard, but as an example, it's next to the standard. That and one of those, or a set of those, have to do with the terms by which others harvesting data for AI are permitted to do that. So, for example, I would gladly, because I'm old and I don't care about, I mean, whatever my medical records are that are things that are unique to me, like I have an oddball blood disorder. It doesn't disable me, but it's interesting. So I would like AIs to know more about that. Okay, so I would like, and I would like to be part of the, I would love AIs to know more about dyserythropoietic anemia, which is what I have. Okay, don't even bother trying to spell it. I can barely spell it. It doesn't matter. But what matters is there are risks for some people who have this, and having my data with all the other data as part of, what are the other symptoms that go along with this? This is the kind of thing where anything that would help medical diagnostics, I would gladly share. I need my own terms when I go to deal with a medical professional to say these are those. As for privacy, otherwise, I think if we start for ourselves with truly personal AI in the first place, here are my records of everything, that are mine. I'm not sharing those with you. You can collect some out in the world and get them into my possession. I mean, it'd be great if an AI helped me find, hey, how do I get everything that Google Maps and Apple Maps knows about where I've been? I want that. How do I get that? And if an AI tells me that, and then maybe another AI could go and say, oh, I'll go through all the trouble of asking the permissions or whatever is required. I'm making this up as I'm talking, by the way. But help me go through whatever it is I need to do to get that data to me so I have it. That'd be great. But the corpus of data that is mine should be purely mine. All of it should be, it's private stuff. Everything that's in my house here is mine or ours with me and my wife, and is nobody else's business unless we invite them in and show them this is our art and that's the clock and that's the other thing, that those are, but that's our data, that's our property, and it should live in a safe place that's ours, where if we share it with others, it's A, encrypted on the outbound, and B, governed by agreements about how it's used. And we should be in charge of those agreements. It's as simple as that. And it could be the Customer Commons won't be big or rich enough to have all of the possible agreements that could be out there. By the way, the standard does not cover negotiation. We wanted to make it simple. Negotiation on a lot of these probably will be required. But if we start from us being the first party and the sole proprietors of our own data, that's where to be.
So this my terms is gonna be one thing that every customer will want, or is it going to be something we can personalize?
Well, it's both. I think that, right now, all the personal AI we have is personalized. It's not ours. We want the personal kind. Imagine if we only still had mainframe companies. We never had PCs, and all of our phones were still owned by AT&T or whatever the PTT was in the country, in your country of origin. That's what they had in Europe. Postal Telephone and Telegraph, PTTs. There was Deutsche Telekom and British Telecom and France Telecom, and we still lived in that world where your phone would be a France Telecom phone, and it's entirely run by them. That's the world we're in with AI right now. Okay, that's we're stuck in that. We need to we need to get it on the personal side. So um, I'm kind of
But the
drift.
terms, actual terms that we will be sharing with the brands and companies, or on the website, that will be just one version, not so many different versions, right?
Well, it should be ours, okay, to begin with. Now, I mean, it may be okay. Let's take the medical example. It may be that we go in saying all of my I go to a new medical provider. I have my entire corpus of medical information. Very hard to get in the U.S. Much easier in other countries where medicine is socialized. Um, but here's I've got all my medical data together here, and I go in with my terms saying, okay, you can use that in your system only for me and nobody else.
Mm.
And then they come back with, okay, but we would yes to that. Basically, this is kind of like improv. With improv, you do yes and. Okay, so we're talking about yes and. Okay, yes to that, and we would like to be able to share this on um, oncology information, or this hematological information or orthopedic information with these other parties for research purposes, where it'll be anonymized. Is that okay with you? Or you would like to participate in this study where, and then we would work that out, and that, but I think we would need on our side, with our personal AI, one that is informed by models that have already been worked out elsewhere, because that's going to be required. But
Right.
but you could swap them out like you can with Notebook, not Notebook, yeah, Studio LM, I think it is, where you can bring in.
Yeah,
This is Llama. I can bring in DeepSeek, or
yeah.
anyway. But I,
Yeah.
but we start. It's a matter of where we start. Where do we start from? We need to start from the personal. That's sort of my main point.
Yes, yes, totally. And I want to give you a chance to talk about the first person project before
Yeah.
we get close to the end of the conversation. So tell us more.
Yeah. So the first person project actually doesn't have a website yet. Some of you will know about something called self-sovereign identity, or SSI. The whole idea behind that, and credit to a guy named Devin Lafredo, who's a teacher, but a hacker and teacher, teaches hacking, among other good things, in Long Island. He recognized that identity has two forms. One is administrative. Everything you've got in your wallet is an administrative identity. Your DMV, your driver's license, all of those. Somebody else gives you an ID. Self-sovereign is you're in charge of it. You're the first party in this thing. And so, and in the same ways that you could be a first party in legal dealings, and you speak in the first person as a person. In English, you say I and me and my. Those are first person pronouns. And in the same ways we are that, we could do the same thing with identity. Kim Cameron, who was the chief identity architect for Microsoft and wrote the 7 Laws of Identity, referred to himself as the committee of the whole. Who he is to his mother, who he was to his kids, who he is to in the band he played in, who he was working at Microsoft, are all different people. They didn't actually even all get along with each other in some ways, right? And we are all that. What we call sanity is our ability to be many different entities behind one pronoun or one name, right? I'm Doc to the world, but I'm David to my wife, and I'm Dave to my sister, and to people who knew me from way back when. Nicknames work that way. And so the idea behind the first person project is that we should remake the way that it's a really simple thing. The way we construct the social networks, our contacts, our calendar, our contacts, for example, we need something much better. For example, there's something already being worked on that I really like, where imagine if your real social network was, and let's say you're on Apple, you're on Microsoft, you've got Outlook, and here's a list of your contacts, here's your address book, but what's your actual social network here? Here's somebody I just met once at a conference. Do I really know them? Right? Are they in LinkedIn? Oh, I do know them on LinkedIn. I should have that in here, but I don't right now because that's not complete. The idea behind the first person project is that I know Nico's a human being. I can say that, and I've got a record here. So yeah, that's a person. That's not a bot. That's a person. Okay, I got that. And she says the same thing about me. Now we start scaffolding up everything else on top of that. That's basically the idea behind the first person project. But to me, the spearhead in that project is actually my terms. Once you start dealing with the world, let's take something people want that's not just the abstraction that is, here's a better way to do social networks. That when you talk about your social graph, as soon as you say graph, you've got only the geeks. Everybody else doesn't know what you're talking about. They have a graph paper or something, right? But but if you're talking about, hey, let's get rid of all those cookie notices, and oh, by the way, let's get rid of all of the shitty agreements that you've got with all kinds of parties you don't know about. Let's build the world in a better way. I think that's a good tip to that spear.
Wow. Thank you
And
so
look for the
much.
first person project to show up at some point with a website and a plan
Yeah,
and a bunch
that's
of other stuff.
exciting. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing lots of great ideas and lots of inspiration. And I mean, I know we talked about the future a lot, but is there anything else you want to add about predictions for this future of digital economy?
Wow. A joke I tell about the Cluetrain Manifesto and also about the intention economy is that one's been wrong for 25 years, the other's been wrong for 13 years. But I'm convinced that both will be right in the long run. So after the intention economy came out, the Wall Street Journal approached me and said, we want the first chapter of that for the front page of our marketplace section. And fantastic, great. And they did, they paid me for it and everything. And they wanted me to predict something 10 years in the future. That was 2012. It's now 2025.
Yeah.
And I saw intent casting as something that would happen. Intent casting is is where you do the advertising. I want, I need a stroller for twins downtown in the next 2 hours. Who's coming through? That's intent casting. And we actually have it. It's just that we have it inside Facebook and we have it inside Craigslist. And we have it inside these other things. I can't put the one thing, that request, on both Craigslist and Facebook. I want to be able to put it in the world. How do we do that? We still don't have that. We still don't have intent casting. We've got about 20 companies, maybe less than that now, in the Project VRM wiki that do intent casting one way or another, but none have broken through. And I think it's just because shopping is so easy now. I mean, shopping is the hard it's kind of covered, I think. But the idea that we have autonomy and sovereignty and freedom, and that we can prove that free customers are more valuable than captive ones is out there and will be proven in the long run. We just have to, in the words of a friend, we muddle through. Muddling happens, right? We'll make it work, and it won't be perfect, but it'll be great.
Wow, amazing. Thank you for this insightful conversation. How can people support you? How can they get in touch?
Oh my gosh. I'm easy to write to. I'm doc@searls.com. And if you go to, searls.com itself just is my resume, but doc.searls.com is my blog. Go to Project VRM. It is project and then vrm.org. That's another, it's actually basically a blog. It's on WordPress. But we have a giant wiki that's got stuff that's accumulated for 16 years. Get us money. Get Customer Commons money. Customer Commons needs money. So first person project has a little bit of money, but Customer Commons needs some money. So that'd be great.
Wow, awesome. Thank you for your groundbreaking work. Thank you for sharing all of your insights. This was great, and we could have gone for hours, but our time, unfortunately, is limited. I want to thank our amazing audience, Brian, Cam.
Save those questions if you can. I'd love to see them.
Yeah, it's all going to be on LinkedIn and YouTube. You can definitely respond to them or read them afterwards. JK, Ron, Don, and Mo. So many amazing folks that join us live. I'm so grateful. Bill, Felipe, Jean, and so many amazing. Ian Harrison. Thank you for your great questions, Zach and Rocio. We're so grateful for all of you who joined us live, shared their comments and questions. And for those who will be joining and watching the recording, we will be back again next week for another great episode. Thank you so much, Doc. This was amazing.
Thank you,
I can't wait for all these ideas to come to life.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.